Miss Wright, are you sure you want to cancel your visa application? Once canceled, you won't be able to go abroad for 6 months. Have you discussed this with your fiancé? Summer Wright paused for a moment, then replied firmly. I'm sure. I no longer plan to go abroad to get married. The staff member on the other end replied quickly, all right. You and your fiancé will receive a notification about the visa cancellation in about 10 days. Please, no need. Before the other party could finish, Summer interrupted her. She tried to calm her emotions. He doesn't care about these things, no need to tell him. After hanging up, Summer bought a plane ticket to return to the mountains a month later. She pinched the bridge of her nose, frowning, and decided to go to her private swimming pool to clear her mind. But as soon as she walked in, 2 intertwined figures instantly caught her attention. A man had a woman cornered against the edge of the pool, splashing water everywhere with their rhythmic movements. Perhaps holding one position for too long made him stiff. The man gently lifted the woman onto the deck. The moment he stood up, Summer saw the necklace around his neck. It was the gift she had bought for Ethan Evans on their very first date. Separated by a wall, Summer dialed the number etched into her heart. The moment the call connected, Summer saw the man over there pick up his phone. Baby, what's up? The voice on the phone overlapped perfectly with the voice of the man by the pool. Summer suppressed her trembling voice. Ethan, are you at the university right now? He chuckled on the other end and said, Yeah, I'm grading Daisy's thesis. If you don't believe me, I can let Daisy say hello. He moved the phone away, and a woman's laughing voice came through. Hello, Mrs. Evans, I can testify. The professor is guiding me right now. The phone was brought back, and the man spoke gently. I'm getting off work early today. I'll bring you your favorite fried shrimp later. Babe, just wait at home for your hubby obediently, okay? She didn't answer, simply reaching out to hang up the phone. Tears slid from the corners of her eyes. At the pool, the people resumed their next round of movements. The woman's voice was no longer suppressed. With the rhythm of their actions, it grew louder and louder. Summer changed back into her clothes and turned to leave. Not long after, Summer returned home. At the same time, a message from Ethan popped up on her phone. It was a photo of fried shrimp. Summer only took one glance to realize the image had been cropped. She opened Daisy Johnson's Instagram. Sure enough, in the full picture, Ethan's hand was covered in dense, stinging red bite marks. She typed out a line. Ethan Evans, do you remember why I agreed to be with you in the beginning? The reply came quickly. How could I forget? You said you liked the feeling that Ethan Evans' heart and eyes were filled only with Summer Wright. Babe, I did it. Not just for the past 7 years, but for the rest of my life, I will always do as I say. When Summer read the last sentence, she let out a self-deprecating laugh. 7 years ago, Summer met Ethan for the first time. It was raining heavily that day. Summer found a feverish, delirious Ethan at the entrance of the temple. Disregarding her master's instructions not to have too much contact with outsiders, she moved him into her room and cared for him with great devotion, hiding him from everyone. Later, Ethan confessed his love. Because she had been abandoned by her parents as a child, Summer didn't dare trust anyone, so she drove him down the mountain, saying they should act as if they had never met. But Ethan didn't retreat. He accompanied her up the mountain every day to pick herbs and practice martial arts. He confessed 99 times, and Summer rejected him 99 times. Until one time, Summer was trapped on the mountain and encountered a ferocious wild wolf. Ethan didn't hesitate to shield her with his body. Half of the flesh on his arm was bitten off by the wolf, and he lay in a hospital bed for over 3 months. Summer's defenses finally crumbled, and she accepted Ethan's confession. After they got together, the Evans family didn't approve of the relationship and kicked Ethan out. He started his own business, working hard in the big city with Summer. But before they made any money, Summer fell seriously ill. With no one around to take care of her, Ethan went to underground boxing matches at night to earn money. Even though he was covered in injuries, during the day, he would wear a sunny smile, writing songs for Summer to make her happy. Finally, they saved enough money and Summer recovered. The song he wrote for her, titled Affection, was released, and their love story spread through every alley along with the melody. Later, they built a career. Ethan became a professor. Standing on the podium of the highest honor, he confessed to Summer again, promising her a lifetime together until their hair turned white, promising her a wedding of the century. Summer cried so hard she couldn't catch her breath, shouting at him, "I agree, but you must also promise, if you dare to betray me, from then on, mountains and rivers will not meet, and we will never see each other again for the rest of our lives." But words became a prophecy. The vows of the past turned into bubbles, bursting at the slightest touch. In the third month after returning, Summer noticed a lively young girl by Ethan's side. It was his friend's sister, a student who had just returned from studying abroad. She was gentle and elegant, yet her gestures didn't lack a playful cuteness. She told him to keep his distance. He said the little sister was just a friend who needed his help, and that she should know where his heart lay. But on the second day after their engagement party, the so-called little sister appeared in Ethan and Summer's home, wearing sexy lingerie, the marks on her body revealing exactly what had happened that night. That was when she truly understood. The promises from a man's mouth cannot be trusted. Summer looked down at the ring in her hand. It was bought with the first sum of money Ethan had saved 6 years ago, and it was also the cover art for the song Affection. She rubbed the chipped ring. The object was old, and so was the love. So she took it off and took out the written pledge Ethan had handwritten during their engagement. If Ethan Evans betrays Summer Wright, the punishment is that Ethan Evans will never see Summer Wright again in this lifetime. Summer signed her name stroke by stroke and placed it into a small box. She added a note, "Wedding gift, open in 1 month, Summer." An hour later, Ethan opened the door and walked toward Summer with a smile. He opened a ring box as he walked, and when he reached Summer, he knelt on one knee. "Miss Summer Wright, to express my love, please let your hubby put this ring on you." Ethan took Summer's hand, but suddenly he noticed that the first ring, which Summer had never taken off, was missing. "Summer, where's our first ring?" Summer let him put the ring on her hand and said casually, "I put it away. It got dirty. Just like your love dirty." Her indifferent attitude instantly panicked Ethan. He hurriedly asked, "Impossible. For 7 years, even when the paint chipped, you never took it off. Did you misunderstand something?" Then he sighed and took out a video on his own accord. Summer looked up. Ethan's face appeared on the screen. In the video, he was sitting at a desk, extremely focused, seemingly carving something. At the same time, Ethan spoke. "Summer, it's my fault I haven't accompanied you these past few days, but I was carving this ring for you. For our baby's things, I must do it myself." Ethan's eyes were firm and gentle. If Summer hadn't seen their illicit affair, she might have actually been fooled by him. Summer chuckled lightly and took out the gift box. "Why are you so nervous? I put the ring away because the paint really was chipping. Anyway, this is a gift I prepared for you." A hint of surprise flashed in Ethan's eyes. He took it and was about to open it, but Summer stopped his hand and pointed to the sticky note on top. Seeing her gesture, Ethan paused, then affectionately tapped Summer's nose. "Then I'll listen to Summer." After speaking, Ethan kissed Summer on the forehead and happily went to store the box away. Watching his back, Summer swiped on her phone and canceled the flight to France scheduled for a month later. Early the next morning, Summer wasn't fully awake when a kiss landed on her hand. "Summer, let's go choose wedding dresses today. It was supposed to be yesterday, but you know, Daisy had something to ask me about her thesis." Summer rubbed her eyes wearily and was about to refuse subconsciously, but Ethan had already dialed the bridal shop manager's number and booked the entire day. On the way to the bridal shop, Summer merely glanced at an ice cream shop nearby, and Ethan immediately bought an ice cream in her favorite flavor. Along the way, whatever Summer looked at, Ethan would personally go and buy it, bringing it back for his Summer. At the entrance of the bridal shop, Ethan specifically took a photo with Summer. "Summer, do you remember our photo album? We once agreed that as soon as we saved 100 photos, we would never separate." Hearing about the album, Summer froze for a moment. That was a pact the two had made, with the premise that they must absolutely never lose each other. "But Ethan, you've already lost me." Ethan didn't notice anything wrong with Summer and led her into the bridal shop. As soon as they entered, the manager immediately surrounded them, holding a wedding dress that had been prepared long ago. "Mr. Evans, when you said you were coming, we prepared this set according to the measurements you left. I think it will suit the madam perfectly." He nodded, handed the dress to Summer, and signaled for her to try it on. Moments later, Summer walked out wearing the wedding dress. Ethan stared at her, stunned into silence. A shop assistant subconsciously spoke up, "I heard this wedding dress has 999 diamonds on it. Wearing it represents that the bride and groom will be together for a long, long time, never to be separated." A group of people looked at her with envy, but no one noticed that Summer's hand was tightly gripping the skirt, her eyes cold. They wouldn't have a future. Moments later, Ethan snapped out of it and handed his card to the manager to pay. After everything was done, Ethan held Summer's hand, ready to leave. Suddenly, a message notification sounded. Ethan picked up his phone to look, and the next second he looked at Summer with apologetic eyes. "Summer, I suddenly remembered I have a contract to sign nearby. Why don't you go ahead first?" Hearing this, Summer nodded. She didn't expose him and turned to leave. As the car started, Summer suddenly remembered she had left her bag in the bridal shop, so she turned back, only to see a bright, young figure standing beside Ethan inside the shop. A girl's flirtatious voice rang out, "Professor, you came to try on wedding dresses. Why didn't you call me along?" Everyone looked towards the sound, only to see Daisy Johnson rushing straight into Ethan's arms. The bridal shop manager immediately leaned in to curry favor. "And this is?" Ethan patted her head affectionately and then said, "Nothing, just a friend of mine." Hearing this, Daisy puffed up her cheeks. The next second, Ethan whispered something in her ear, and Daisy instantly broke into a smile. Ethan then spoke up, "Bring out all 5 wedding dresses I reserved with my other phone number a while ago. The number is XXX." On the surface, the two were looking at wedding dresses, but from Summer's angle, she clearly saw Ethan's hand slipping under the hem of Daisy's skirt. With the deepening of his movements, Daisy's body trembled imperceptibly. Ethan coughed, then withdrew his hand. He said to the manager, "I suddenly remembered I matched some jewelry for my baby. It's in the car. I'll go get it and come back in a bit." As he left, he shot Daisy a glance. Summer shifted her body to the side, but Ethan didn't look in her direction at all. Summer gripped her phone tightly and returned to her car. Ethan's car wasn't far from hers. Summer clearly saw Ethan pull Daisy into his embrace, kissing her frantically. Soon, the car began to shake slightly. Ethan's deep voice resonated. "How is it, baby? Not jealous anymore? I ordered 5 wedding dresses for you." Hearing this, Daisy leaned against his chest and said coquettishly, "It's different. Summer's has 999 diamonds, mine doesn't." After saying that, she deliberately pounded lightly on Ethan's chest. Ethan grabbed her hand, his voice suppressed. "Why are you hitting me? Haven't I satisfied you yet? Don't rush. I also prepared a set of jewelry for you. The diamonds are no fewer than Summer's set. What she has, you won't lack. Let's stop talking about this. Your hubby isn't satisfied yet." With that, the two began a new round of battle, and the car rocked more violently. Inside her car, Summer watched this farce expressionlessly, but tears scattered on the floor like broken beads. Not until the man and woman both stepped out of the car did Summer wipe her tears, wanting to leave, but the pain in her heart made it impossible for her to move. The two went back into the bridal shop. Ethan tirelessly accompanied her to try on wedding dresses, looking like a couple truly about to get married. But Summer in the car was in so much pain she couldn't stand up. Ethan was so focused on helping Daisy try on dresses that he didn't notice the car outside hadn't left for a long time. Only when they finally finished did Ethan notice Summer hadn't left. Alarm bells rang in his head. He sprinted to the car, only to see Summer curled up, her face pale from pain. He immediately pulled Summer into his arms. "Summer, what's wrong? Is it your heart condition acting up again? Did you see?" Ethan hesitated, but Summer had absolutely no strength to respond to him. He looked at Summer with heartache and ordered the driver to drive to the hospital immediately. Along the way, Ethan kept rubbing Summer's chest to soothe her. When Summer finally gathered enough strength to respond, Ethan's phone rang. Ethan answered almost instantly. After the call ended, Ethan looked at Summer hesitantly. "There's an issue with Daisy's thesis." Summer didn't say anything more, just nodded. "It's fine, you go." Hearing this, Ethan relaxed. He said to the driver, "Make sure to get the madam to the hospital. If anything happens to her, I won't forgive you." With that, Ethan got out of the car. After watching him get into another car, Summer said to the driver, "Driver, follow that car." The driver didn't ask questions and started the car, following Summer's instructions. The car sped along and finally stopped at the university where Ethan worked. Seeing this, Summer followed Ethan to the door of a laboratory. Ethan opened the door. Daisy, dressed in a maid outfit, threw herself into his arms and said shyly, "Professor, I knew you would come back." Ethan smiled and pinched her cheek, speaking gently, "Today is our 3-month dating anniversary. You haven't fed me full yet, how could I not come?" With that, the two of them entered the lab one after another. Before long, indescribable sounds came from the lab, getting louder and louder, and one could even hear the sound of tables shaking. Outside the door, Summer dug her fingernails deep into her palms, murmuring, "3-month anniversary." That meant their romance started on the day Ethan proposed to Summer. It was right here that Ethan, in front of all the professors in the lab, his colleagues, and his students, promised her a lifetime as a couple. This laboratory held the memories of when they were most in love. Listening to the noises inside, Summer felt waves of uncontrollable heartache. She clutched her chest and walked expressionlessly toward the outside of the campus. It wasn't until a taxi driver pulled her back from the road that she snapped out of it. "Girl, what are you doing? You almost got hit by a car?" Summer lifted her tear-streaked face. The driver was startled by her appearance, so he patted Summer and asked what was wrong. But Summer just shook her head and asked the driver to take her home. When she was almost home, Ethan sent Summer a message. "Summer, I picked out another wedding dress for you. See what you think." Summer opened the photo and clearly saw the bite marks on Ethan's hand. She turned off the screen, unwilling to look any further, and sat on the sofa in a daze. It wasn't until a knock on the door that her thoughts were pulled back. When she went to open the door, she found it was the wedding dress Ethan had chosen for her. After putting on the dress, she walked to the mirror, only to realize that at some point, the makeup she had carefully applied in the morning was completely ruined by tears. She forced a stiff smile. So ugly. It doesn't fit anymore. With that, Summer took off the wedding dress and slashed the skirt with a knife, cut by cut. Then she found the gifts Ethan had given her in the past and cut them all to pieces. "Ethan Evans, from now on we are cut in two." Near evening, Ethan opened the door and walked in. What he saw were beads from the wedding dress scattered all over the floor. A buzzing sound filled his brain, and his trembling voice rang out in the room. "Baby, why did all the beads on the dress fall off? Don't you like it?" Panic was written all over Ethan's face, and a thin layer of sweat covered his forehead. But Summer just smiled casually and said, "The workmanship of the dress wasn't good. I tried it on and they all fell off, so I cut the dress up and threw it away." Hearing this, Ethan froze for a moment, then sighed in relief. He stepped forward and wrapped his arm around Summer's shoulder. "This designer isn't good. I'll have him fired when I get back and have a new one custom made for you. It will definitely be 100 times better than this one." Summer shook her head and forced a smile. "No need to trouble yourself." The second dress was also very beautiful, but Ethan stubbornly tightened his hold on Summer's hand and said, "It's different. I want to make the best, absolute best wedding dress for you. You know, for this dress embedded with beads, once the beads scatter on the ground, it signifies that the couple will separate. I'm so scared, Summer. Don't refuse me." Suddenly, Summer felt Ethan's tears drop onto her shoulder. Summer only found it laughable. Just a superstition scared him this much. What if she really left? What would happen to him then? Just then, a message notification sounded, interrupting Summer's thoughts. Ethan picked up his phone and happily picked Summer up. "Summer, my visa is issued, how about yours?" Just as Summer was about to answer, her phone notification sounded at the same time. It was the message confirming the visa cancellation. Summer glanced at her phone, her heart skipping a beat. Fortunately, after seeing the word visa, Ethan didn't ask further questions. Relieved, she said to Ethan, "Yeah, mine was successful too." Hearing this, Ethan kissed Summer and wiped his tears against her face. His voice was bitter. "Summer, I can finally marry you. Do you want to guess where our wedding will be held?" Summer paused for a second and subconsciously said, "Milan." "You haven't forgotten?" Ethan asked with a trembling voice. How could she forget? Back when they had no power or money, she had bought a bridal magazine about Milan. Whenever life felt bitter, she would take it out and flip through it. At that time, Ethan would motivate himself. Life goal: give my Summer a grand wedding in Milan. Every time, Summer would rub Ethan's hair. "I don't care about a wedding. As long as you love me forever and we are together forever, that's enough." If you dare stop loving me, I'll turn around and leave thinking of this, Summer said hoarsely. How could I forget? I won't forget a single sentence. Hearing the last sentence, Ethan looked up inexplicably and met Summer's resolute eyes. He felt that something had changed. But Summer deliberately turned her head and lay down, afraid that if she waited one more second, she would fall back into that desperate love from years ago. Ethan thought Summer wanted to sleep, so he tucked her in and got up to turn off the lights. The moment he lay down, Ethan's phone rang. He glanced at it and hung up. But the next second, the phone rang again. Ethan clicked answer impatiently, and a voice came through. Big J just signed a huge deal and is throwing a party. Are you coming, Ethan? Ethan frowned and was about to refuse, but suddenly Daisy's voice came through the phone. A hint of delight flashed in his eyes. Professor, come on over. This is my brother's first big deal, and I have thesis questions I want to ask you about. Ethan looked at Summer hesitantly. The person on the phone also urged, Ethan, it's not late. Bring your wife along. Hearing this, Summer looked up and replied, You go ahead, I won't go. But Ethan wouldn't have it. He took Summer's hand. Accompany me, you know all my friends. In the end, Summer followed Ethan out the door. When they arrived, a group of people surrounded the couple, congratulating them on their engagement. When Daisy saw Ethan, her eyes instantly lit up. Someone next to her teased, You were always clinging to Ethan when you were little, and you still are now. It's a pity. If you hadn't gone abroad a few years ago, maybe right now. Before he could finish, Ethan interrupted him coldly. There is no maybe. The one I am marrying now is Summer. Hearing this, Summer rubbed her temples in annoyance. Ethan saw it and quickly came over to ask her what was wrong. Seeing this, the people around said, If the sister-in-law isn't feeling well, she should go back, right? Don't force it. We'll watch Ethan, nothing will go wrong. Ethan was about to refuse, but Summer chimed in, Okay, then I'll go back. She removed Ethan's hand from her shoulder and walked out the door, ignoring Ethan's confusion. Ethan looked at Summer's back, feeling something was wrong. In the past, Summer wouldn't have let him stay out drinking and messing around with them at night. Seeing the door close, the friends beside him spoke as if relieved. She's finally gone. We were just being polite. Why did you actually bring her? The doting husband persona is fine for show, but don't fool us too. Who doesn't know you? Summer was outside. Hearing their words, her heart sank bit by bit. Then, she reached out and pressed the record button. But have you thought about it? If you get married, what about Daisy? One of them asked a question. Ethan glanced at him sideways, then replied as if enlightened. Oh, I get it. A man should have a wife and a girlfriend who truly accompanies him. That's the right way. One to manage the house, one to manage you, ha ha ha. Seeing his friend laughing wildly, Ethan patted his shoulder. It's enough that we say these things in private. Don't let Summer hear. I promised her I'd love only her. So what if she hears? You've been together for 7 years. I don't believe she can leave you. Daisy nodded in agreement, then suddenly pretended to be angry and asked. Then tell me, who do you love more, me or her? Ethan rubbed her waist. Who do you say I love the most? Did I not satisfy you enough last night? Everyone burst into laughter. The noise from inside reached Summer's ears as if mocking her downfall. Summer rubbed her aching temples, feeling that the road to the entrance was so long, seeming even longer than the 7 years they had loved each other. When Summer finally reached the door, she uncontrollably fainted. The moment before she passed out, she saw Ethan rushing toward her. When she woke up again, Summer rubbed her head and found she was in the marital home Ethan had bought. She got up, put on yesterday's clothes, opened the door, and prepared to leave. Suddenly, the sound of rapid breathing came from the room opposite. Then, Ethan's low voice sounded. Baby, don't hold it in. Let me hear you. Professor, no, what if Summer hears? Ethan gasped. Then hold it in, baby. We're having an affair. After speaking, their voices grew louder. Summer pressed record on her phone at the same time. Baby, no protection. Here, we will have the crystallization of our love. My baby is going to carry my little baby. Unable to listen anymore, Summer covered her ears and walked downstairs in a breakdown. But she accidentally discovered that on the wall in the center of the living room, the spot where their photos used to be was covered by a cloth. Summer lifted the cloth with trembling hands. A wedding photo of Ethan and Daisy snuggling together in wedding attire appeared prominently. As if doused in freezing water, Summer turned her head away, unwilling to look. but she saw the wedding photos they had once taken casually thrown aside. She started looking around the living room. Every single one of their wedding photos had now been replaced. Summer didn't know how she got home in the end. She only remembered that the moment she stepped out, Daisy sent several photos and voice messages. "Hee hee, Sister Summer, did you see? Your wedding photos were all burned by me. Anyway, the professor let me handle them, so there's no problem with how I handle them, right? See, Brother Ethan loves me the most after all. The wedding given to you is just charity for 7 years. I think you shouldn't be oblivious. Just be obedient, and Brother Ethan and I can still support you." In the pictures, photo after photo was burned to ashes. In the few that remained, only Ethan's face was left. Summer sneered in her heart. 7 years of deep love and memories were all personally destroyed by Ethan. A phone call came in. Summer subconsciously pressed answer. Ethan's voice came from the phone. "Summer, when did you leave? Does your head not hurt anymore?" Summer remained silent and didn't answer. Ethan's voice instantly became urgent. "Babe, why aren't you talking? Did you see those photos? Trust me, that wasn't me that." Before he could finish, Summer interrupted him. "What photos?" Hearing this, Ethan sounded relieved as he tentatively asked, "Nothing. I was just thinking, after our wedding, let's come back and shoot a set of Chinese-style wedding photos. We'll buy a bigger house and put them in the living room. Didn't we already take some? Since we've taken them, there's no need. I don't like things that have been used. Not just the wedding photos, but you too." After saying that, Summer hung up the phone. Moments later, the bedroom door was opened by Ethan. He rushed into the room urgently, only to see a desolate-looking Summer. He had never seen her looking so lifeless before. Seeing this, Ethan hurriedly tried to pull Summer into his arms, but Summer turned sideways, then coughed. "Don't touch me. I'm not feeling well, don't want to infect." Before Summer could finish, she was swept up in a bridal carry by a frantic-looking Ethan, who headed straight upstairs. Only when he placed Summer on the bed did he finally speak with a trembling voice. "Summer, it's my fault for not taking good care of you lately. You don't know how much my heart ached seeing you like that just now. We've been together for 6 years, and I've never seen you so weak." As Ethan spoke, he cradled Summer's hand in his palm, cherishing it like a rare treasure. But Summer only felt disgusted. She pulled her hand away from Ethan's, forced a smile, and said, "I'm fine. I want to be alone. You should go." Hearing this, Ethan was about to refuse subconsciously, but suddenly the phone in his pocket rang. Ethan raised his hand to hang up, but Daisy's name appeared on the screen. Ethan finally said helplessly, "All right, babe, take care of yourself. Remember to call me if you need anything. I'll come back to keep you company tonight." Summer nodded and watched him open the door and leave. But just as he started the car, a message from Daisy came through. "Sister Summer, today is my graduation ceremony. You should come too. There's a surprise." She stared at the message for a long time. Finally, she hailed a taxi by the roadside and went to their university. After getting out of the car, she indeed saw Ethan. She gripped her phone tightly and followed him all the way to the graduation ceremony hall. The moment Ethan entered the door, Daisy's voice rang out from the stage. "Professor Evans, I like the way you correct my thesis for me every time. I like the way you abandon unimportant people for me, with only me in your heart and eyes. Ethan Evans, I love you." The people below broke into applause, chanting in unison. "Kiss, kiss," they embraced and kissed deeply on stage, gathered under the spotlight, looking like lovers who had cultivated their love for 1,000 years and finally achieved fruition. The next second, music played in the hall. The professors, colleagues, and students who had once witnessed Ethan proposing to Summer were now clapping one by one. Leading them was the teacher Ethan respected the most, Professor Higgins. He stepped forward, took both their hands and put them together, saying, "Daisy, did you know? Ethan wrote this song himself. I saw with my own eyes how he stayed up countless nights to compose this moving love song for you. You must know, nothing else matters. As long as you love each other, love can overcome all difficulties." Hearing this sentence, Summer could no longer hold back her tears. She ran wildly out of the auditorium, wiping tears as she ran until she uncontrollably fell to the ground. Tears soaked Summer's face. She suddenly remembered the day Ethan proposed. It was also that Professor Higgins who held their hands and said earnestly, "Summer, I'm handing this brat over to you from now on." In my heart, I've long considered him a son, and you are the only daughter-in-law I recognize." Summer laughed self-deprecatingly, her voice getting louder and louder. Passers-by looked at her as if she were insane, yet no one was willing to step forward and ask her what was wrong. Until the rain stopped and Summer looked up in confusion. A message from Ethan followed. "Summer, our school has a study abroad seminar recently. It's about 2 weeks. I'll definitely be back before we leave. Wait obediently at home for hubby." Each word was like a sharp knife, drilling into her heart, cutting her until she was bloody. Tears flowed down with the rain. Summer reached out to wipe them dry, but the tears were like a waterfall, silently venting her despair. Later, Ethan really didn't come back. Only Daisy's friend circle updated frequently, and it was set to be visible only to Summer. On the first day, Daisy posted a live photo of her and Ethan in the hospital. The man's voice in the background was gentle enough to drip water. "My little baby needs to eat more to get healthy." On the second day, Daisy took a live photo wearing sexy pajamas. The man's voice in the background was restrained and seductive. "Babe, give me a kiss." On the third day, the two went to an amusement park. The background sound was Ethan's deep confession. "Daisy Johnson, I will like you forever." Summer looked at these messages, her heart no longer holding any ripples. But the other side seemed not to believe it. By the fourth day, receiving no message from Summer, Daisy simply sent photos and videos directly to Summer. "Summer, look. This is the wedding dress the professor ordered for you back then. Now I'm wearing it. And you didn't know, right? We wore this wedding dress in your marital bed. You have no idea, the professor tossed me around so much I couldn't get out of bed for days. And this one, it's my pregnancy test. You also didn't know, right? I'm pregnant with the professor's child. On the day of your wedding, I'll tell him. Let's see if he chooses you, or simply runs away from the wedding to abandon you and choose me." Summer laughed out loud when she saw this line of text. "I'd like to see how he runs away from a wedding with no bride." The week before the wedding, Ethan still hadn't returned. Summer was happy to be alone. Every day, she gathered items from the house that she and he had used during their loving times and destroyed one. The 99 love letters written to pursue Summer, thrown into the shredder. The 100 gifts the couple had buried in the backyard. Summer dug them up and threw them into the fire one by one, watching them burn to ash. Big and small gifts, photos, Summer burned them, threw them away, or sold them. When everything was done, the house was so empty it looked like no one lived there. The day before departure, Ethan finally came home. Looking at the empty house, alarm bells rang in his mind. He rushed upstairs and saw Summer still sleeping, which put his mind at ease. Ethan went up and kissed Summer's forehead, then patted her gently. "Summer, why are so many things missing from the house?" Summer rubbed her eyes and smiled. "I thought they were all important and wanted to bring them all to France, so I found someone to ship them over in advance." Hearing this, Ethan sighed in complete relief. He pulled her into his arms. "Babe, we're going to France to get married soon. Before we leave, is there anything you want to do?" Summer paused for a moment, then said, "I want to watch the music video for Affection one more time." Seemingly surprised by Summer's answer, Ethan asked in astonishment, "You can watch that anytime. Do you really not have anything else to do?" But Summer shook her head and insisted, "We might not have time to watch it later. Before leaving, I want to recall my 7 years one more time." Hearing the word, leaving, Ethan felt inexplicably panicked, even though she clearly meant leaving the country. Summer saw Ethan's hesitation but didn't explain further. She just took Ethan's hand and sat down in front of the computer. Opening the video, 7 years passed quickly in the plot. It wasn't until the only fight the couple ever had that Summer deliberately slowed down the video speed. "Ethan Evans, promise me that there is really nothing between you and that little sister. As long as you say it, I will believe you." On the screen, Ethan spoke with a firm face. "I promise Daisy and I have absolutely no relationship. If there is, Ethan Evans will be punished by never seeing Summer right again for a lifetime." Ethan, in front of the screen, trembled all over when he heard these words. Noticing his odd behavior, Ethan immediately said to Summer, "Summer, believe me, she and I don't have any improper relationship." Hearing this, Summer turned to Ethan and smiled. "Ethan, I know everything." Then she let go of Ethan's hand and prepared to pack her suitcase. but just as she came out, she saw Ethan hurriedly running downstairs while on the phone. Summer said nothing. She went straight to the walk-in closet, picked up a pile of clothes she had cut to pieces days ago, and packed them all into the suitcase. Then, she packed the chat logs and friend circle posts from Daisy she had printed out over the past few days into the gift box that used to hold the ring. After everything was packed, Summer lay on the bed with satisfaction. A message came in. "Summer, Daisy isn't feeling well. I'll go keep her company first. We'll meet at the airport on time tomorrow." Summer laughed after seeing the message, then replied with a single okay. Early the next morning, Summer arrived at the airport on time with her luggage. Ethan hadn't arrived yet, so she sat aside to wait. A phone call suddenly came in. "Sister, is the flight today?" "Yeah, arriving in about 3 or 4 hours. Watch the time to pick me up." Suddenly, a laughter-filled voice sounded in her ear. "Who is it? Why are they coming to pick you up?" Summer turned her head to look. She hung up the phone and spoke with feigned ease. "Nothing, just a friend I know in France." At the same time, the broadcast announced that their flight was about to take off. But Summer suddenly clutched her stomach, handed her luggage to Ethan, and ran toward the bathroom while saying, "Ethan, you guys go first." Then, watching Ethan board the plane, she took out another suitcase. She walked toward a different plane. Before takeoff, she pulled out her SIM card and dropped it into a soda bottle. Outside the window, sunlight pierced through the clouds. Everything was a brand new beginning. Ethan boarded the plane with Daisy, but she walked straight to the seat beside him. He looked up at her in confusion, only to see Daisy rubbing her brow and leaning on his shoulder. "Professor, I'm a little dizzy. You kept me up too late last night. Let me rest a bit. When Sister comes back, she can just sit in my seat." Ethan subconsciously wanted to refuse, but the next second, Daisy's hands were wandering restlessly over him. He groaned, rubbed Daisy's waist, and began to touch her all over. A second before his consciousness faded, Ethan opened his chat with Summer. "Summer, Daisy isn't feeling well. Take her seat when you get back." Then he became intoxicated in Daisy's gentle trap, completely unaware of the red exclamation mark on the screen. After the plane landed in France, Ethan and Daisy stood up from their seats hand in hand. Passing Summer's seat, they saw she was no longer there. He glanced at the empty seat, assuming she had gotten off the plane earlier, so he took the luggage and led Daisy out of the cabin door. It wasn't until they reached their pre-booked car and still didn't see Summer that Ethan finally began to panic. Seeing Ethan motionless for a long time, Daisy waved her hand in front of his eyes. "Professor." Hearing this, Ethan snapped back. He asked in confusion, "Where's Summer? Why hasn't she come yet?" Then he let go of Daisy's hand, preparing to return to the airport to check again if Summer was still waiting for him foolishly. But Daisy suddenly stepped forward and hugged his arm. "Brother Ethan, I just saw the message Sister Summer sent me. She said she went to the house first. Do you really not want to be alone with me that much?" As she spoke, she reached her hand into Ethan's shirt and began to roam up and down. Soon, Ethan held her hand back and swallowed hard. "Summer really sent you a message?" Seeing Daisy nod, he finally revealed a smile, scooped Daisy up in his arms, and got into the car. A few hours later, he tidied himself up in the car mirror and ordered the driver to drive home. As they neared the house, Ethan remembered that Summer might have sent him a message too, but when he took out his phone, he found it was off. For some reason, panic began to rise in Ethan's heart. "Summer, I'm back. You didn't wait too anxiously, did you?" After the car stopped, before even reaching the door, he shouted loudly towards the inside. Ethan stood at the door, expecting Summer to open it upon hearing him and throw herself into his arms. But the only response was a gust of cold wind. At this moment, he finally realized something was wrong. He opened the door. The house was pitch black, not looking like anyone had been there at all. The gifts he had prepared in advance lay quietly on the table, completely untouched. Ethan turned on the living room lights with trembling hands. "Summer," no one answered. "Summer, don't scare me, okay?" Still no one answered. "Summer," Ethan shouted with all his might, but the huge room only echoed his voice. At this moment, a thought surfaced in his mind. But the next second, he waved his hand and forced a laugh. "Impossible. How could Summer leave me? We've accompanied each other for 7 years." He shook his head in disbelief, then suddenly seemed to remember something. He hurriedly plugged in his phone charger. The phone showed the charging icon. Ethan pressed the power button frantically with his right hand, his left hand clenched tight, sweating cold sweat. A moment later, the screen lit up. Ethan released his hand and tremblingly pressed for fingerprint unlock. The notification bar was empty, save for a few news alerts he hadn't had time to clear. Ethan shook his head, muttering, impossible. He put down the phone, clasped his hands together, closed his eyes, and prayed inwardly. Maybe Summer's phone is off. Maybe she didn't find the house and rented a hotel outside. Once she charges her phone. Suddenly, a notification sound interrupted his thoughts. Ethan instantly relaxed his furrowed brows and picked up the phone. Message failed to send. Seeing this, Ethan almost went mad. He threw the phone aside and paced back and forth in the room, clutching his aching head. Until a moment later, a snow-white suitcase at the door caught Ethan's attention. That was the suitcase Summer had carried for 7 years. Ethan stepped forward and opened it. Pieces of clothes that had been cut and torn fell out one by one as the lock opened. Falling out along with them was the haute couture wedding dress Ethan had spent months customizing. He laughed once and kicked the suitcase over. A piece of paper floated out. 999 beads symbolized the love of two people never separating. Beads together, people together, beads scattered, people scattered. Ethan read the words on the card in a breakdown, tears forming in his eyes and dripping onto the paper. After a while, he tried to steady his mind and dialed a number. "Hello, I'm Ethan Evans. I want to check on a passenger named Summer Wright on Flight XX. Did she board the plane?" The sound of keyboard typing immediately came from the phone. A moment later, the other side replied. "Hello, Mr. Evans. We found that miss. Summer Wright canceled this ticket a month ago." "What did you say? Canceled a month ago?" Ethan's face wore an expression of disbelief. The hand holding the phone trembled incessantly. As tears fell, the phone slipped from his hand. "Then do you know where she went? Did she book another ticket? Where did she fly to?" Ethan shouted at the phone in a breakdown, but an impersonal female voice came from the phone. "I'm sorry, sir. We cannot disclose passengers' personal information. Please understand. I can give you money, as long as you tell me where my Summer went." His eyes held a light of expectation, but it was quickly extinguished. "Sorry, sir, we don't know." "Don't know. Right, how could they say so easily? What if someone with bad intentions was looking for his Summer?" He apologized and hung up the phone. His Summer didn't come, so she must have stayed in the city. Maybe she was still waiting for him. As long as he went to admit his mistake, maybe. Ethan swallowed hard, suddenly remembering Daisy's words. He dialed Daisy's number full of hope. Her coquettish voice came from the other end. "Brother Ethan, did you talk to Summer? When are you coming to accompany?" Before she could finish, Ethan interrupted her. "Summer didn't come. She refunded her ticket. Didn't you say she replied to your message? You must know where she is. Is she still waiting for me at home?" A string of questions left Daisy speechless. She had made that sentence up. How could she know where Summer went? "Professor, I don't know either. Sister Summer just sent me that one sentence, nothing else. Maybe she's in a hotel?" "A hotel? I just said she refunded her ticket, don't you understand? Or are you lying to me?" Ethan vented his anger loudly at the phone. Daisy on the phone seemed frightened, her voice trembling. "Professor, I know you're worried about Sister Summer, but you don't need to yell at me, right? Summer is important, so I'm not important?" Ethan rubbed his brow and sighed. "Sorry, Daisy, I'm in a very bad mood right now. I'll talk to you later." Then he took a deep breath and dialed a number back home. "Ethan, is something wrong? Calling this old man right before becoming a groom? Professor, Summer is gone." After saying this sentence, Ethan broke down in tears. "Gone? Ethan, don't worry. Buy a ticket back first, we'll help you find her." Ethan spoke chokingly into the phone as if he had found a lifeline. "Okay, I'll go back first." "Yes, don't worry. Maybe Summer is waiting for you at home. I've seen with my own eyes how loving you two have been for these 7 years." After hanging up, Ethan bought a ticket to return to the country 2 hours later. He started packing things in the room, boarded the plane back alone without even notifying Daisy. When he arrived at his doorstep, he hadn't closed his eyes for over 10 consecutive hours. But opening the door, there was still no sign of Summer. He even accidentally discovered that the things in the house had been almost completely moved out. Seeing this, Ethan almost went mad. Professor Higgins patted his shoulder. "Go on, I didn't expect Summer to be so decisive either. I already ordered someone to check for you. Summer went home. Good boy, go make amends. Having determined the direction, Ethan simply tidied himself up and hurriedly bought a ticket to El City. Since it was in the mountains and Ethan didn't know anyone here, he transferred between stations, rushing back and forth. After 24 hours without sleep, he finally arrived in front of the temple he had seen 7 years ago. Before entering, he rented an RV. Since he had spent money to build a road up the mountain to marry his Summer, Ethan walked this road smoothly. Later, he deliberately messed up his hair at the entrance, wanting Summer to know his exhaustion from rushing for her these past few days. Then Ethan took a deep breath and knocked on the temple door. He kept imagining the scene of their meeting in his mind, thinking that whether his Summer scolded him or hit him, as long as she was happy, as long as she went back with him, his bride could only be Summer. But after imagining it countless times, no one came to open the door. Ethan began to bang on the door ceaselessly. People passing by stared at him. "Hey, do you think this is that scumbag Summer was dating? Looks like a decent human being, though." Ethan turned his head to glance at the passerby, then stepped forward. "Auntie, is Summer not here today?" He smiled obsequiously. But the woman who was called shouted, frowning, "Who are you calling auntie? Who is your auntie? Go away, don't touch me." Ethan didn't react in time and was pushed onto the less slope nearby. Dust was shaken up, and the surrounding people laughed at him upon seeing this. "Look at you. Are you worthy of our Summer?" Still trying to ask where she is. "Sai, tomorrow I'll introduce my boy to Summer. There are plenty of handsome guys in town. Just hurry up and get lost." Hearing this, Ethan hurriedly shook his head. "Introducing others is useless. Summer still loves me." Then, ignoring the mocking of the older women, he walked toward the RV and began to wash the dirt off his body. "Summer, wait for me. Maybe when you saw Daisy and me together before, your mood was just like mine now. Wait for me. Don't let those men be with you." With that, Ethan summoned up his courage again, walked to the door, and began to knock. But after a while, heavy rain began to fall outside. Ethan watched the rain getting heavier but didn't go back. He just kept knocking on the door, muttering, "The weather was just like this when Summer and I first met. Does this mean I can still win Summer back?" Then his voice grew louder, shouting into the temple. "Summer, right? I love you. The only one I will love in this life is you. Other women are just passers-by." "I was wrong. Summer, can you give me another chance?" But the louder his voice, the louder the thunder outside, as if specifically opposing him. Every time he opened his mouth, thunder roared. By the end, Ethan's voice was almost hoarse. He hammered weakly on the door. "Summer, I know I was wrong. Can you let me see you just one glance? From now on, I will absolutely not let other women near me. Promise me, okay?" The rain fell harder and harder, but the door still didn't open. Not until the moment he fainted did he hear the sound of the door opening. As he fell, a voice finally came from inside. "Master, he hasn't kicked the bucket, has he?" Shoo, not that easily. Drag him in. What bad luck." Early the next morning, Ethan saw he hadn't been invited inside, but there was a bowl of medicinal soup beside him. Just as a glimmer of hope sprouted in his heart and he prepared to regain his morale to knock on the door opened. "Summer," he spoke happily. "Not here." The one responding wasn't Summer, but her junior brother, Ruddy Wright. Ruddy looked down at him and asked in confusion, "How exactly did you trick my sister into leaving back then, looking like this dead thing?" Hearing this, Ethan coughed. "Not tricked. Where is your sister? Is she sick?" Ruddy jumped at the words. Pewee, why are you cursing my sister? Do you think everyone is as weak as you?" With that, disregarding Ethan's expression, he spoke on his own accord. "If you ask me, stop pestering my sister. You should be locked down with that mistress sister of yours. She harassed my sister all day long, and now you come to harass her. Isn't it disgusting?" Hearing this, Ethan subconsciously wanted to refute, but he quickly realized what he had ignored. "What did you say? She harassed? Daisy Johnson?" Ruddy rubbed his hair irritably and shoved a stack of papers into Ethan's chest. "Here, this is what your mistress sister sent to my sister these past few days. There were more before. Find them yourself. Don't come near us." Ethan took them. The first message that caught his eye was, "Summer Wright, if you're leaving, can you leave thoroughly? Do you know the professor went back to find you again? Is this exactly what you want to see him do for you?" Below was a long string of curses, unbearable to look at. Ethan gripped the paper tightly, his eyes narrowing, revealing a fierce expression. Then he tore the papers to pieces, returning to that cold, impersonal appearance from before. "Summer, anyone who stepped into our relationship, I won't forgive them." Leaving this sentence behind, he turned and got into the car, driving toward the airport. As soon as he landed, he went straight to the bridal home he and Summer had bought. Before boarding the plane, he had found someone to notify Daisy to return from France immediately. When he arrived, Ethan opened the door. What greeted his eyes were the so-called wedding photos of him and Daisy. Thinking about what his Summer must have thought seeing these photos, he felt so much pain he couldn't breathe. How much pain must Summer have been in? Suddenly, the safe in the corner caught Ethan's attention. He checked the time on his phone. This day was supposed to be their wedding day. Ethan closed his eyes and walked toward the safe. Opening the so-called wedding gift, that 7-year-old faded ring appeared in Ethan's eyes, and the agreement they had signed. Ethan looked at the ring and his past promise, unknowingly shedding tears. Tears dripped onto the ring, and he suddenly remembered the day she left. Summer had tears in her eyes and told him, "I want to recall my 7 years one more time before leaving." His girl had told him countless times. If Ethan Evans betrays Summer Wright, the punishment is that Ethan Evans will never see Summer Wright again in this lifetime. How could he not have realized? She had been hurt so badly. "Summer, I was truly wrong. But you have to believe the only one I've always loved is you." Ethan held the diamond ring, crying silently, letting his tears fall onto the ring. Half an hour later, he wiped his tears and looked at the time again. "Should be here." Just as Ethan finished speaking, the villa door opened from the outside. Daisy's lovely figure entered. As soon as she walked in, she saw Ethan, backlit and with a dark face. She frowned and deliberately coughed. "Brother Ethan, why did you leave me behind and go? Do you know how scared I was out there? I didn't know the place or the people. She kept talking, but Ethan remained silent, maintaining the same posture. Daisy saw that his mouth was clearly smiling, but his eyes emitted a chill. She understood this was the sign that Ethan was angry, but she didn't understand why he was angry. Could it be just because of Summer's departure? "Why do you think Summer left me?" The man's cold voice rang out in the room, instantly disrupting Daisy's thoughts. She spoke tremblingly, "Brother Ethan, I don't know either. I didn't spend much time with Sister Summer. You know, you told me not to be in front of Sister Summer. I knew all th. "Oh, you knew everything?" Before she could finish, she was interrupted by Ethan. Ethan smiled at her, but his gaze was like watching prey. Daisy stared at Ethan in confusion. Could it be he saw the messages she sent before? She swallowed hard. Suddenly, the photos in the center of the hall attracted her attention. So she said, "Brother Ethan, did Sister Summer leave because she saw these photos?" I explained these photos to Sister Summer. They are just ordinary photos with no symbolic meaning. After she finished speaking, seeing Ethan still hadn't opened his mouth to say anything, she took small steps closer to Ethan. Just as she was about to reach out and pinch Ethan's shoulder, Ethan threw a stack of photos onto Daisy's face. "What is th?" Daisy was stunned by the throw, but when she saw the content of the photos, she sobered up instantly. They were the chat records she had sent to Summer. Her eyes darted around, afraid to look at the photos. "Professor, listen to my explanation. These chat records..." Daisy stopped halfway through her sentence, meeting Ethan's terrifyingly cold eyes, which instantly silenced her. Ethan wasn't blind. The content of the photos was her provocation of Summer. At this time, her senseless explanations would only make things worse. So Daisy took a deep breath, picked up the chat records, and replied with a crying voice, "Professor, I was wrong. I shouldn't have sent these to Sister Summer. But you don't know, I waited for you for a full 7 years. Every time I heard my brother abroad saying how much you loved your girlfriend, I would feel incredibly heartbroken. So when you gave me hope, you don't know how happy I was. So I sent them to Summer, but I had no malicious intent. I didn't know she would actually leave you directly, Brother Ethan. Will you believe me, okay?" As she spoke, she stepped forward to cling to Ethan's leg, taking his hand and placing it on her tear-stained face. Ethan sneered upon hearing this and instantly grabbed her face. Red marks quickly appeared on Daisy's fair face, but Ethan didn't let go. He spoke through gritted teeth. "Did I tell you that you and I were just playing around? If you dared to make a scene in front of Summer, I would absolutely not forgive you. But not only did you let Summer know, you also said so many hurtful things to her. Believe you one more time? If I believe you, then what about Summer? Who will make my Summer believe me one more time? Do you know that because of you, I stood in the rain all night in front of the temple and couldn't even see Summer? Thinking of this, Ethan flung Daisy aside in disgust. At the same time, a piece of paper fell out of Daisy's bag. Ethan instantly narrowed his eyes and quickly picked up the paper. Daisy, seeing this, rushed forward trying to snatch the paper back. Ethan, I was wrong, don't look, please. But just as her voice fell, Ethan picked up the paper and read it. Intrauterine early pregnancy. He read it word by word. Daisy beside his leg instantly lost her strength and collapsed to the side. Muttering, "It's over." Ethan patted her head lightly and said, "I actually didn't know you were pregnant with my child. Daisy Johnson, you really are amazing. If I hadn't seen it, were you planning to hide it from me forever? Wait until the child was born to go to my parents. Make me marry you?" He smiled at Daisy, but Daisy just kept shaking her head. Then, ignoring Daisy's terror, he dialed a number. "Hello? Schedule an abortion surgery for me, the sooner the better." Hearing this sentence, Daisy completely lost it. She shouted in a breakdown, "Ethan Evans, you can't do this. This is our child. If you don't want to see him, I won't appear in front of you for the rest of my life. Please spare me." But Ethan seemed not to hear, walking straight toward the door. Seeing him about to leave, Daisy hurriedly threw herself onto him, frantically saying, "Ethan Evans, you will regret this. My brother won't let you off. And your parents, if they know you killed their grandson, they definitely won't forgive you." Hearing this, Ethan finally stopped. He looked down at Daisy. "You should worry about yourself first." Then, ignoring Daisy, who was crying so hard she couldn't catch her breath, he walked out the door. Daisy wiped her tears in disbelief, watching Ethan's decisive back. She took out her phone and made a call. "Brother, save me. Ethan Evans is crazy. He wants to kill me." After hanging up, Daisy's heart was still beating incessantly, as if she had experienced something terrifying. When she thoroughly calmed down, Daisy realized her face was already covered in tears. Tears and sweat intermingled, revealing her terrified mood. Daisy clutched her stomach, looking up at the wedding photo in the center of the living room. She didn't understand. Why had she, Daisy Johnson, also accompanied Ethan for so long, yet he never looked back at her? Even the crystallization of their love, he wanted to destroy it with his own hands. Thinking of this, Daisy couldn't control herself and cried out loud. Suddenly, a phone call interrupted Daisy's crying. Hello, Daisy, this is Grace Evans, Ethan's mother." Daisy froze for a moment. She didn't understand why his mother was calling her, so she asked, "Hello, Mrs. Evans. Is something the matter?" "Yes, there are some things we need to discuss in person. I sent someone to pick you up." "Good child, don't be afraid. You've been wronged." Hearing this, Daisy's defenses crumbled instantly, collapsing on the floor waiting for Mother Evans' arrival. Not long after, several cars stopped outside. Accompanied by the sound of getting out of the car, Daisy looked expectantly at the door. When Grace Evans appeared, she hugged her directly. Grace was somewhat surprised but patted her back gently. "Don't be afraid. I will protect you and my grandson. I just called that brat and told him to come apologize to you personally." Hearing this, Daisy nodded, moved. The two sat on the sofa, and Grace began asking about changes since her pregnancy. Just as they were chatting enthusiastically, Ethan appeared at the door. Seeing his figure, Daisy trembled reflexively. Beside her, Grace quickly pulled her into her arms in distress. Grace looked at him coldly and said, "I heard you're turning everything upside down again for that little girl from 7 years ago. Is it worth it? Just a girl from the mountains. If you broke up, you broke up. Do you know Daisy is pregnant with your child, your first child? Do you know how scared Daisy is because of you? Monster, apologize to Daisy and cancel that surgery, and I won't scold you anymore." Ethan sneered upon hearing this. "What do you know? I chose her 7 years ago, and I would choose her today as well. Daisy Johnson, I don't know where you got my mother's number, but let me tell you, I absolutely will not acknowledge this child. You'd better kill the thought of giving birth to him. My child can only be with Summer Wright." Then, ignoring how dark their faces were, he turned and walked out the door. Summer didn't know what was happening on Ethan's side. Since returning to the mountains that day, for some reason, her master wouldn't let her interfere with practicing martial arts or picking herbs. He just gave her a card and told her to take care of herself and not be easily tricked by others again. Summer accepted the card with a smile and returned to the bedroom she had left 7 years ago. It was still warm and cozy. Even after 7 years, they had kept it spotless. Perhaps Master knew long ago that they couldn't be together for long, Summer thought to herself. Seeing that the day was still long, she decided to visit the fields in the backyard. Since she was young, she had loved coming here. The quiet, comfortable, slow-paced life suited her very well. Later, when she was with Ethan, she had mentioned many times that she wanted Ethan to take some time to come back to the temple with her and experience this life. But every time, Ethan refused with various excuses, busy with work or having other lectures. At first, to not crush Summer's expectations, Ethan would book tickets a few days in advance, even if he didn't return in the end due to various matters. Later on, he didn't even buy tickets, just casually finding an excuse to refuse. Summer didn't say much each time, just smiling and saying she understood his hard work, but only Summer knew how lonely his repeated rejections made her feel. Her understanding seemed so laughable in the face of her lover's betrayal. Thinking of this, Summer shook her head and looked at the scenery at dusk. Fortunately, she cut her losses in time. Ethan wasn't right for her. Only this long-term stable life was what she wanted. "Summer, come eat," her master's familiar voice sounded. Summer wiped a tear from the corner of her eye and replied, "All right, coming, what good food did you make today?" Accompanied by her master's answer, Summer's steps became lighter, as if she had broken free from 10,000 shackles. Meanwhile, the situation on Ethan's side became very bad. Since confessing completely to Mother Evans that day, Ethan devoted all his daytime efforts to redeeming and making up to Summer, throwing all company affairs aside. At night, he ran to bars to mess around with his friends, often being photographed by paparazzi. The next day, it would be published on the front page of the newspaper, causing the Evans Group's stock to plummet. The Evans family cut off his funding chain. His company relied almost entirely on funds provided by the Evans family, and only a small part of his living expenses came from his professors' bonuses and salary. These companies were all operated by Summer and Ethan together in the past. He didn't want to give them up at all, but the Evans Group couldn't tolerate his companies leeching off them. So Ethan thought of contacting old friends, hoping to get their financial support. Did Summer Wright really run away? She's been with you for 7 years, how could she give up a rich catch like you? Brother, stop being depressed. Listen to me, Summer will be back in a few days. She enjoyed a wealthy life for 7 years. How could she give it up so easily and run to the mountains? What a joke. And I heard you had a huge fight with Daisy for this woman, scaring her so much she doesn't dare come near you now. Is it worth it? It's just a gold digger. You can have as many as you want. Or are you lamenting your lost 7 years? Ethan, who had been frowning since entering, realized that Summer had endured so much malice back then. His friends had never looked at her directly. Listening to their belittling of Summer, Ethan crushed the teacup in his hand and smashed it against the wall. Apologize. Everyone had been discussing in high spirits, but seeing Ethan like this, they were all confused. Just as they opened their mouths to say something, Ethan repeated, "I said apologize. Apologize to Summer for the words you just said." Ethan's voice was like ice frozen 3 feet deep, cold enough to make one shiver. Seeing the atmosphere at a standstill, one of them tentatively said, "Ethan, stop joking." As soon as his voice fell, Ethan glared back, but the other side didn't back down either. Daisy's brother, Julian Johnson, spoke up. "Why are you pretending to be deeply affectionate now? When we gathered around to criticize Summer before, why didn't you speak up? Also, I didn't believe it when my sister told me earlier, but now my eyes are opened. You really are an ungrateful wretch and a heartless man. My sister treats you so well, willing to stay by your side without a title, and this is how you treat her. Apologize? You apologize to my sister first. Since you and Summer can't get married anyway, why not be with my sister? I see your mother is quite satisfied." Hearing Julian's words, the dissatisfaction in Ethan's eyes turned into confusion. Yeah, when they talked about her together in the past, why had he never refuted it? It turned out Summer had experienced such a situation many times. He searched his mind for memories where he might have refuted them, but the deeper he thought, the more he remembered the words they said around her the day Summer fainted. What was he saying at that time? Facing his friend's teasing, "You've been together for 7 years, I don't believe she can leave you," he didn't refute it but tacitly accepted it. Perhaps at that time, Summer fainted outside from heartbreak precisely because she heard these words. Thinking of this, Ethan felt as if he had been doused with bone-chilling ice water. Not knowing what to say, he could only pick up the wine glass again and again, hoping alcohol could numb him. Perhaps due to the alcohol, Ethan really started to think. Summer accompanied him through 7 years of extravagant life. This time in the mountains, maybe she really wouldn't be able to accept it. Once he cleaned up this mess, maybe his Summer really would come back to accompany him. Ethan thought and thought, then suddenly started laughing loudly. Seeing him like this, the crowd put down the hands that intended to persuade him to drink and began discussing other topics. After a while, the door opened from the outside. Everyone looked up in confusion. Seeing who it was, they hurriedly winked at Ethan, but Ethan was still deeply immersed in his memories, refusing to let go. "Daisy, go help your fiancé. It's embarrassing for him to be dead drunk here." Hearing this, Ethan looked up. Seeing it was Daisy, his movements became resistant. "Get out, don't touch me, dirty. If Summer sees, she'll definitely be sad. If she sees, she won't want me anymore." "Get out." Slap. Grace Evans' crisp slap landed on Ethan's face, knocking him to the side where he spat a mouthful of blood. Ethan felt the world spinning. At this moment, Daisy helped him up with heartache. "Are you okay?" "Ethan?" Ethan shook his head in confusion. As if confirming something, he tentatively asked, "Summer? Summer, you forgave me, right? You came to find me. I knew it, you definitely wouldn't want to leave me." Hearing Summer's name, Daisy couldn't control herself anymore. She let go of Ethan's clothes, letting him fall to the ground. The man who had personally confessed his love to her countless times was now shouting another woman's name at her. Daisy didn't understand. She clenched her fists tightly, wanting to vent but unable to. She could only let anger turn into tears falling, choking out, "You love her that much? Ethan Evans, I loved you for 7 years too. Didn't you say you would cherish me for a lifetime?" She, Summer Wright, came from the mountains. "I grew up in a scholarly family since childhood. How can she compare to me? What right do you have to be so sad for her? What right?" Ethan stared blankly at the emotionally collapsing Daisy. He had never seen her like this. In the process of their love, Daisy was always that cute, obedient sister, something he could control at will. Finally, Ethan looked at Daisy, shook his head, and smiled bitterly. "It's different, Daisy. You and Summer are different. She is the person I placed in my heart. I admit I betrayed her physically, but in my heart, from beginning to end, there was only her." Daisy sneered, pulled off the ring on her hand, and threw it in his face. "Ethan Evans, you are truly disgusting." The next morning, Ethan woke up in the bed at his family home. He tried to lift his arm to rub his eyes, but found something pressing down on it. Ethan turned his head and realized it was Daisy. He pushed Daisy away in disgust. This action also woke her up. Daisy, half-dressed and with red eyes as if she had cried all night, looked up at Ethan and said, "You don't need to be like this. Mrs. Evans insisted on locking me in the room." Ethan glanced at her, cursing himself inwardly. Why had he been bewitched by her manipulative act in the past? Just as Ethan raised his hand to shoo her away, he saw her stroking her stomach, looking full of maternal radiance. A trace of ruthlessness flashed in Ethan's eyes, but he didn't show it on his face. He tentatively reached out to Daisy. "Daisy, can I feel it?" Hearing this, Daisy looked up, flattered. Her eyes instantly lit up. She carefully took Ethan's hand and placed it on her stomach, speaking gently. "Ethan, my family can be of help to your family business. As long as we give birth to the child, both the Evans and Johnson family businesses will be yours." Hearing this, Ethan reached out and patted Daisy's head. "I know, I had a dream last night and figured it all out. I prepared a gift for you. Do you want to go see it with me?" Daisy's face flushed instantly, and her tone became shy. Okay." With that, Ethan picked Daisy up in his arms and ordered the driver to drive to a location. Along the way, Daisy kept asking what the surprise was. Ethan only said he would tell her when they arrived. Evans Private Hospital. Daisy murmured the name of the hospital. She shook Ethan's shoulder, trembling. "Ethan, why are we here? Are you sick?" Ethan remained silent, simply ordering the bodyguards to pick her up and walk all the way to the obstetrics and gynecology department. She watched as Ethan spoke a few words to the doctor and signed his name on a paper, then walked toward her. Daisy watched the grim expression on Ethan's face and shook uncontrollably. Ethan? Ethan, you can't do this to me. Mrs. Evans is still waiting for me at home. You can't. She broke free from the nurse's restraint, crawled to Ethan's side, and pulled at his pants while crying. Brother Ethan, we've known each other for over 10 years. I am Professor Evans. You are just a graduate student under me. She watched Ethan say this expressionlessly, then wave his hand at the doctors. They instantly surrounded her. The bright white light shone on her face, and the cold syringe pierced her body. Only then did she realize she couldn't shed any more tears. The anesthesia took effect quickly. Before passing out, Daisy saw Ethan's decisive eyes. Her hand gripping the clothes finally let go. The surgery went quickly. When Daisy woke up again, it was already the next day. As soon as she woke up, the blinding sunlight outside shone on her face. Daisy looked at her flat lower abdomen in confusion. She desperately tried to recall the feeling when the child was still there, hoping to numb herself, but she couldn't. She couldn't remember. She touched her lower abdomen, tears dripping down uncontrollably from heartache. Ethan Evans, how could you do this to me? It was her fault, the mistake of liking him 10 years ago, the mistake of getting together with him a year ago. But clearly, when he was young, he said he would protect Daisy Johnson for a lifetime. Her tears wouldn't stop, just like the hole in her heart that could never be filled. Suddenly, the door opened from the outside. Daisy looked up to see Ethan's bodyguard. He bowed politely to Daisy, then carried in items one by one. Miss Johnson, these are the photos you took with our young master in the past, and the things you gave him. He doesn't need them anymore. You don't need to harbor unrealistic fantasies either. The one our young master loves will always and only be Summer Wright. After speaking, the group put down the things and walked out, leaving Daisy and a pile of cold photos in the huge ward. She looked at the stinging red wedding photos and couldn't control herself, laughing out loud, her voice getting louder and louder. The red wedding dress contrasted sharply with Daisy's terrifyingly pale face. She forced herself out of bed and touched the wedding dress. Summer Wright, if I can't have Ethan Evans, don't dream of having him either. After dealing with everything there, Ethan packed his luggage and bought another ticket to Summer's home. He believed that as long as he persisted in pursuing her, just like the first time he pursued her, his Summer would definitely return to his arms. Thinking this, Ethan arrived in the mountains very quickly, but he was surprised to find the temple door locked tight with no one around for miles. Ethan narrowed his eyes. Summer had nowhere else to go but here. She had told him before that her master had been rooted here all his life. Leaving her master, where could she go? Thinking this, Ethan reached out and dialed a number. Hello, check where Summer Wright is right now. After finding out, send me Summer's itinerary. Ideally, find out who is with her. Also, book me a ticket there. But just as he hung up the phone, he looked up and saw Summer. The surprise in his eyes flashed for a second before he saw another man beside her whom he had never seen before. The man was dressed in white, with a tall and straight posture. The smile he directed at Summer was warm and sunny. Ethan stood frozen in place, unsure if he should approach. But seeing the man's hand about to touch Summer's shoulder, he finally couldn't help but shout loudly. Summer, hearing the voice, both of them turned to look at him. The moment Summer made eye contact with him, the disgust in her eyes was unconcealed. Ethan felt somewhat aggrieved. He shouted again, Summer. But Summer took the man's hand, took a step back, and said to him with disdain, Sir, our temple does not receive outsiders. Please leave as soon as possible. Sir? Ethan silently chewed on this incredibly unfamiliar word in his heart. Was his Summer trying to clear her relationship with him? The man beside her stepped forward. He was tall, even half a head taller than Ethan. He chuckled disdainfully. Didn't you hear Summer say no outsiders? Sir, do you want us to chase you away? Hearing this, Ethan looked up at him slightly. This perspective of being looked down upon made him feel humiliated. He said in dissatisfaction, Who do you think you are? Do you know what kind of relationship Summer and I have? Listening to Ethan's words, the man didn't get angry. Instead, he looked back at Summer with a smile, as if asking for her attitude. Meeting the man's eyes, Summer instantly understood his meaning. So she stepped forward, held the man's hand, and said, Ethan Evans, we broke up. I have a new lover. His name is Caleb Cloud. I advise you to save some dignity for yourself and don't look for trouble here. Also, stop calling Ruddy. He says he finds you very annoying." Her tone was full of indifference and alienation, causing Ethan to freeze in place instantly. Lover? What does that mean? They had only been apart for a few months, and she had a new lover. He didn't believe it, but the atmosphere between them pierced his heart deeply. Ethan then tentatively asked, "What do you mean, lover? Summer, don't provoke me on purpose. I've already cut ties with Daisy, and regarding the child in her belly, I forced her to have an abortion." Hearing the words "forced abortion," Summer's brow trembled. She didn't expect Ethan could be so cruel. Didn't they know each other for over 10 years? Caleb on the side had a different expression. Watching their tightly clasped hands, his brain kept savoring the word lover. Summer just said. The ex-husband was good for something after all. He could push their relationship forward. Just as Caleb was secretly pleased, Summer spoke again. "What relationship you have with Daisy, I don't want to know, nor will I care. We were together for 7 years. There's no need to make it ugly for both of us." With that, Summer turned and led Caleb inside by the hand. But the moment they closed the door, Ethan suddenly reached his hand in. Caleb took a look, didn't stop, and deliberately closed the door. Ethan's hand quickly turned red. Holding back the pain, he looked at Summer. "Summer, we loved each other for 7 years. Just because of this one mistake, are you going to completely abandon me, abandon our relationship? I really cut ties with her. My parents forced me to marry her, and I've almost separated from my family. I only have you now." His tone was sincere and affectionate, but the words pieced together didn't sound like a normal person's logic. Caleb, who had been quietly watching the drama, now pieced together the truth of the story. The guy cheated on Summer and wanted to gaslight Summer into staying with him. Caleb almost laughed out loud at his words, let alone Summer. He turned to look, seeing Summer's expression remained indifferent, as if the person in front of her had nothing to do with her. He tightened his grip on Summer's hand and spoke sarcastically. "Summer, why is this person so baffled and sentimental? Who wants to be his only one? Bad luck, don't you think?" His last sentence was even directed at Ethan. Ethan looked at him with a belly full of anger, but couldn't say much, pinning his hopes on Summer's attitude. But seeing Summer laugh out loud after hearing Caleb's sentence, the atmosphere between the two pierced Ethan's heart again. Seeing Summer turn to look at him, hope returned to Ethan's eyes. But the moment Summer looked at him, her gaze changed abruptly, no longer happy as before. He shook his head and took out their ring from 7 years ago. "I polished this ring again and engraved the initials of our names. It's made of special material. It absolutely won't fade this time." Saying this, Ethan wanted to take Summer's hand to put it on her, but Summer suddenly snatched the ring from his hand and threw it out the door. "Ethan Evans, what exactly are you doing? You, your actions, and your nauseating ring, I dislike them all." Ethan watched the ring being thrown out, his brain crashing instantly. The Summer of the past, even if she disliked something, wouldn't shame him in front of others like this. He opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but suddenly realized his words were so powerless, as if nothing he said would matter. Summer looked at him like this, feeling no heartache at all, only disgust and the annoyance of being disturbed. She took out her phone from her bag and checked the time, realizing she had wasted over an hour with him here. Having just picked Caleb up from outside, she was already tired, and Summer's mood was nearing an explosion. "Ethan, aren't you disgusting? This broken ring wasn't just for me, right? Were you wearing it while sleeping with your precious darling, even using my name as a tool to enhance your feelings?" Hearing this, Ethan shook his head anxiously, opening his mouth to defend himself. "You don't need to say anything more. It's just the same few sentences back and forth. You'll change. You won't do it again." "Ethan, do you even believe those words yourself? Besides, even if you can change, I won't tolerate you anymore. I've had enough of you. In this life, I never want to see you again. Also, do you think pestering me is interesting? Do you think your so-called chasing the wife back from the crematorium, your so-called amends, can repair our relationship? Let me tell you, once unfaithful, never used again. We said it before. If you dared to betray me from then on, mountains and rivers would not meet. But what is this appearance of yours now? The one who can't let go of Daisy is you, not me. Why should I compromise myself for you? When I was heartbroken in the room because of you, do you know what you were doing? You were in the room next to ours, recklessly messing around with Daisy. Did you consider my feelings then? And thanks to your lack of consideration, I was able to see your true colors sooner and cut my losses. Summer finished speaking on her own, disregarding the look on Ethan's face. Then she took Caleb's hand and left, leaving Ethan alone. Ethan looked at Summer's heartless back. He realized with a start that perhaps Summer really wasn't as he imagined, wouldn't simply forgive him like before. Perhaps his Summer had long been hurt 1,000 times, her heart long numb. But he also didn't understand how this man, who had been with her for at most a few months, could directly replace his position. He understood even less why his image in Summer's heart was so despicable. What did he do wrong? To Ethan, Daisy was just a tool for release. He only played with her when he was happy. His feelings for Summer were the ones that were real. Summer and Caleb walked hand in hand all the way to Master's door. Even when Master came out, they hadn't let go. It wasn't until Master's gaze fell on their hands that Summer coughed and released his hand, her face blushing. No, 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 just pretend I don't exist. Master Vance Sullivan waved his hand and turned back into the room, smiling. Summer was about to follow him inside, but just as she lifted her foot, her wrist was held by a force. Caleb looked at her hand, somewhat reluctant. Maybe Ethan is still watching, sister. Summer raised an eyebrow. Looking up, she met Caleb's eyes, which contained possessive emotions. Summer shook her head, still releasing his hand. I'm sorry, Caleb. I don't really want to be in a relationship right now. Thank you for not exposing me just now. Hearing this, Caleb's expression instantly fell, but Summer rubbed his head and smiled. Don't overthink it. Master made good food. Come in. The next morning, Summer planned to go up the mountain with Caleb to pick herbs. They talked and laughed as they walked. When they opened the door, they ran straight into Ethan. The two tacitly ignored him. Summer! Ethan looked at Summer's back and unwillingly held her hand, calling her name. Seeing this, Caleb silently reached out, turned to look at Ethan, then smilingly pried his fingers open one by one, interlacing his fingers with Summer's. Ethan frowned at him and said bitterly, Summer, I'm sorry to you, but for the sake of our 7-year relationship, can you let me walk with you for a while longer? After this, I won't disturb you anymore. After Ethan finished speaking, he looked up slightly, gazing expectantly at Summer, waiting for her attitude. Beside them, Caleb raised his and Summer's joined hands, indicating, Summer, refuse if you want. If you're worried about a certain someone shamelessly following, I can go pick herbs alone today. He smiled at Ethan without humor, like a warning. But Summer shook her head. It's fine. Ethan, if you want to follow, then follow. As soon as her voice fell, Ethan immediately looked up, only to see her and Caleb walking ahead, talking and laughing. Ethan realized that perhaps her leaving him was a very good choice. At this time, the sun hadn't fully risen, and the mountains were filled with mist, but it was the best time to pick herbs. Caleb walked at the very front. Whenever he encountered bushes, he immediately stepped forward to push them aside for her. Summer smiled at him when she saw this. Ethan was at the very back. Looking at the smile on Summer's face, his eyes were full of envy. She used to smile so sincerely at his 20-something self, too. At that time, the only thought hidden in his heart was to treat Summer well for a lifetime. When did it change? Ethan lowered his head bitterly. He seemed to finally realize he should give up, but he still couldn't bear to. At this moment, Summer's voice suddenly rang out. The sun is rising. Caleb, Ethan, look. Summer stood against the light. Ethan looked at her, and she looked at the rising sun. He remembered the first time he accompanied Summer up the mountain to pick herbs. As they walked, Ethan suddenly felt tears streaming down his face. He raised a smile and said to Summer in front, Summer, I'm sorry. Saying that, he wanted to reach out and touch Summer, who was walking at the very front. But Caleb led Summer into a trot for a few steps. They faced the sunlight and said, Over this hill, we can see more sunlight. Ethan wiped his tears. Without disturbing them, he quietly left. Watching Ethan leave, Caleb poked Summer and smiled. He's finally gone. You can't be my girlfriend either. Summer glanced at him sideways. Seeing this, Caleb pouted aggrievedly. On the other side, Ethan checked the flight time after descending the mountain and started the car to leave. Actually, he had decided to leave yesterday. He knew that once Summer made a decision, she would absolutely not go back on it. After being scolded by Summer, he realized that they shouldn't be in an entangled relationship anymore. Summer would have a better life in the future, and he would spend a lifetime remembering this love. After landing in El City, Ethan went straight to the Evans house. He believed that as long as he persisted in pursuing, like the first time he pursued her, his Summer would definitely return to his arms. But as soon as he opened the door, he found his grandfather and father there too. They were sitting around, the atmosphere solemn. Seeing this, Ethan was about to ask what was wrong. Grandfather Evans slammed his cane hard on the ground and shouted angrily at him, "Monster, you still know to come back. Look at what you've done." With that, he picked up a newspaper and threw it in Ethan's face. Ethan frowned and opened the newspaper. Professor at El City University insults and forces graduate student to have an abortion. Below was the picture of the bodyguard holding Daisy when getting out of the car that day, and a video clip of Daisy's accusation. Seeing this, Ethan hurriedly opened Weibo. The top trending topic was exactly that line of text. He hesitantly clicked on the video. Daisy was tear-stained, facing the camera with helpless eyes. "Hello everyone, I'm a graduate student at El City University. My advisor is Professor Ethan Evans of El City University. I really can't take it anymore." She stopped halfway and suddenly covered her face and cried bitterly. After a while, she took a deep breath and forced a smile at the camera. "During my 3 years of graduate studies, Professor Ethan Evans, under the guise of guiding my thesis, took me to hotels, swimming pools, and even laboratories multiple times to force himself on me. And during this process, Professor Ethan Evans already had a fiancée he was engaged to. Because of his own selfish desires, Professor Evans forced me to hide this matter. After the affair was discovered by his fiancée, he pushed all the blame onto me." She paused, stroked her stomach, and continued, "Later, I found out I was pregnant. I originally planned to secretly get an abortion without telling Professor Evans, but Professor Evans' mother found me. She said this was the family's first child and told me to keep it. Sure enough, mother and son are of the same kind." Saying this, she took out a recording. It was Grace Evans persuading her to keep the child, promising her a lifetime of wealth, almost irrefutable proof. Later, Professor Evans found out about this. Citing that it would make his ex-fiancée sad, he forcibly took me to their family's private hospital and arranged an abortion surgery for me. At the end of the video, she displayed the ambiguous chat records with Ethan and the pregnancy test reports one by one. "I ask for nothing else. I only ask for justice. I ask Ethan Evans to apologize to me publicly and voluntarily resign from El City University." After the video finished playing, Arthur Evans stepped forward and slapped him directly. "You bastard, do you know that, because of this incident, all the big projects the Johnson family was cooperating with us on have stopped? And just because of your mess, the plaque of our Evans family's scholarly reputation has been smashed by you." Ethan wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked at Arthur. "Are you absolutely sure that everything she said is true?" Arthur glared at him with hatred for his failure. "Do you think we don't know whether what she said is true or not? Since the Johnson family published this online, it means they are prepared to fight to the death. You either get out and apologize to the Johnson family and come back whenever they forgive you, or you leave the Evans family and cut ties with us. Choose one." Hearing the last sentence, Grace widened her eyes and looked at Arthur. "What are you saying? What fault does Ethan have in this?" After speaking, she turned to look at Ethan, signaling him to beg for mercy. But Ethan put down his phone and said, "I will apologize and I will leave here. My sister did the company projects before. They have nothing to do with me. She will be the qualified candidate for the Evans group." He raised his hand, looked at Grace, and mouthed goodbye to her. Grace's tears flowed instantly. She stood up to stop Ethan, but Arthur coughed. "Don't stop him, let him go." Ethan then drove his car around El City and finally followed the navigation, entering the address of Daisy's home. Daisy didn't have a good relationship with her parents and usually stayed alone in the house her brother bought for her. Ethan stood at Daisy's door and hesitantly entered the password. The door opened. Daisy sat on the sofa in the living room, indifferent to his appearance. The TV was playing the music video Ethan had made for her on a loop. Ethan looked around and started cleaning up the trash here, starting from the kitchen, until only the area around the sofa where Daisy sat was left. He stepped in his leather shoes closer to Daisy. The moment he reached out to touch the trash beside her, Daisy suddenly took a drink bottle and smashed it into his face. "Get out, Ethan Evans! Go away, don't come near me, my child, my child." She shouted hysterically at Ethan, then looked down at her stomach, stroking it and saying, "Baby, don't be afraid. Mommy will protect you, don't be afraid." Ethan's raised hand stopped abruptly. Daisy's movement was too large and a bottle of medicine rolled down. He picked up the bottle. Olanzapine, medication for treating schizophrenia. Ethan looked at the medicine bottle. Time seemed to stand still at this moment. Beside him, Daisy continued to shout hysterically. Seeing her state, Ethan put down the medicine and took a few steps back. Daisy stopped shouting. She picked up the medicine bottle, poured out a few pills, and swallowed them. Then she looked blankly at the person on the TV. Her expression was so focused. Occasionally, she stroked her stomach, comforting the non-existent child, and occasionally she looked out the window. Only then did Ethan realize that everything started because of him. If not for him, Daisy should have had a brilliant life instead of being abandoned by the Johnson family. Summer would have done what she loved for a lifetime and met someone she truly loved. Finally, Ethan finished cleaning and prepared to leave, but a knock sounded on the door. "Miss Johnson, hello. We would like to interview you regarding the video you posted." "Miss Johnson, I am a reporter from the El City Daily." Listening to the banging on the door outside, Ethan noticed Daisy covering her head again. Finally, Ethan opened the door, blocking those reporters alone. He was focused on how to deal with the reporters, so he didn't notice the gaze Daisy cast on him the moment he left. When the reporters outside saw Ethan, they looked like they had stumbled upon huge gossip. "Hello, Mr. Evans. May I ask why you came out of Miss Daisy Johnson's home? Did you threaten her?" Ethan pushed away the camera and walked quickly downstairs. The reporters behind him followed incessantly. "Mr. Evans, please do not evade. Please answer the question directly." As the reporter's speech speed increased, his pace became faster. Finally, when he reached downstairs, Ethan turned his head to glance and confirmed that all the reporters had followed. Only then did he finally speak to the reporter who asked the question earlier. "I can answer your question. Let's change location." Hearing this, the reporter's eyes lit up and they nodded in agreement. Ethan took them to a nearby cafe, sat face to face with them, and signaled them to start questioning. The reporters exchanged glances. One familiar reporter spoke up. "Mr. Evans, hello. First question, is the content of the video posted by Miss Johnson true?" Ethan, who was playing with the coffee handle, stopped. He turned his watch, a sign that he was thinking. After a while, he smiled at the camera and said, "Half true, half false. Then is it true that you caused Miss Johnson's pregnancy and forced an abortion?" "Yes. I was in a relationship with Daisy Johnson. It is true that I cheated during my marriage." Ethan pushed back his hair, took off his glasses, and faced the camera directly. "I'm sorry. I have done many wrong things in these 7 years, including but not limited to betrayal in marriage and lack of seriousness in feelings. All of this started because of me. I am very sorry for taking up 7 years of the two ladies' time, and also sorry for occupying public resources because of our emotional issues. I am stating my position here in hopes that the public will not disturb the two female leads in the story. Since the matter started with me, I will bear it. After the video is released, I will voluntarily donate all my personal assets and resign from El City University on my own initiative, giving the two ladies peace and redeeming myself." "Tusk, I originally thought I could watch him and Daisy tearing each other apart on TV," Ruddy said, while cracking sunflower seeds in front of the TV. Summer didn't make a sound. Instead, she turned to look at Caleb. "You're leaving today, right? Do you need me to go with you to buy some things to take on the road?" Caleb, who was suddenly called, looked up, his eyes still red-rimmed. He rubbed his hair and said bitterly, "Yes, it's today. The lab is short of people." Hearing this, Summer wasn't coy. She stepped forward to take his suitcase and walked toward the door. Seeing Caleb didn't follow, she turned back to urge him. "Hurry up and keep up, while I still have the energy to wander around with you." Hearing this, Ruddy shoved Caleb, signaling him to hurry up and follow. Caleb was going for 2 years this time, under fully closed management. There was almost no possibility of communicating with family or Summer. Along the way, Caleb kept staring at Summer in a daze. Whatever Summer packed for him, he nodded and said okay. until Summer pointed to a pack of sanitary pads and asked him if this was okay, and he still stared at Summer blankly saying okay. She instantly laughed out loud, put the sanitary pads back, and started teasing Caleb. What? You have a period once a month too? You need sanitary pads. You say you can't bear to leave me, yet you don't cherish the chance to chat with me. Caleb remained silent. Just as Summer frowned, preparing to get angry, he suddenly hugged Summer. Can you let me hold you for a while? Caleb's voice was low, close to Summer's ear, making her feel a bit ticklish. But she didn't stop him, letting Caleb hold her. After an unknown amount of time, Caleb finally let go. The two went to pay for the bought items together. When they got out the door, Summer realized she had chosen so many things. She struggled to lift and put them down. Caleb beside her looked at Summer with a smile, stepped forward to carry everything on his back, then trotted to the car, hurriedly loading everything into the trunk. I'll take you to the airport. Summer opened the passenger door and said to Caleb. He nodded without a word. The journey to the airport was smooth. They didn't communicate much on the way, mostly Summer mentioning something and Caleb agreeing. Summer saw him like this and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. When they arrived at the airport, she hugged Caleb and patted him gently. It's okay, all good things must come to an end. There's nothing to regret, go pursue your dreams. The young man hugged her tighter, as if trying to rub her into his chest. A moment later, he let go and took out something. He handed it to Summer. Summer looked at the flower, somewhat puzzled. Caleb smiled and clicked the switch on it. The flower bloomed, and in the middle hung the name Summer. It was surrounded by candles. Illuminated by the candlelight, Caleb held Summer's hand and asked her, Summer, I like you. If in 2 years you don't have a lover and my feelings haven't changed, can we have this chance? Summer turned to smile at him, then scraped his nose. I never promise unknown things. I can't say for sure what will happen in 2 years. I can only say, good luck, Caleb. Go chase your dream. Remember that here, we were very good friends. She let go and gave Caleb a push. Then she waved at him. Goodbye, Caleb smiled. The moment he turned around, tears fell. Later, Summer and Caleb never met again. She adopted a little girl named Breezy and let the girl learn from her as an apprentice. One day, Breezy practiced a difficult part. She pouted, dissatisfied. There are 3 of you, and I'm the only apprentice. Won't your hearts ache? Saying that, Breezy put down her sword and turned to point at their 3 wooden swords. A look of let me see if you can do it on her face. The 3 looked at the quirky Breezy and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Summer stepped forward first and picked up the wooden sword. Accompanied by falling cherry blossoms, she danced with the sword under the cherry tree. Breezy watched Summer's movements, her eyes instantly captivated. When the dance ended, Breezy clapped happily. Then she looked at the other 2. Your turn, 6 eyes met. Master coughed, planning to leave. Summer immediately grabbed his arm. Don't go, how can you set an example for the little girl? And you're the oldest here. Yeah, Grandmaster do one. Breezy chimed in mischievously. Seeing this, he did one too. Compared to Summer's, his was heavier in power. After watching, Breezy waved her hand. Very cool, but I think Master's looked better. At this moment, Ruddy stepped forward. You kid, how can you praise one by stepping on another? I can't do this. I'll do a magic trick for you. The 2 gathered together. Summer and Master stood aside, watching them with smiles. Caleb seems to be coming back soon. Hearing this, Summer nodded without much reaction. Master nudged her. Do you think that kid still likes you? Don't know well, don't care. Summer finished speaking, stood up and walked to the 2 kids, patting Ruddy. What are you doing? Don't spoil my kid. Senior sister, how can this be spoiling? This is letting my little niece get in touch with more knowledge. It's useful for learning physics later. You're dragging physics into this? The 3 gathered in a group in the courtyard, Master watching from the side. Summer's phone placed on the table lit up for a moment. Summer, right, I'm back.